Hey, shalom, shalom, shalom lakam, which is peace unto you all. Hi, Rob Tawab La Atam, Za'achikam Yawaman Rachagador Charlotte, which is good evening. This is your brother Yawan from the JMS camp in Charlotte. Nachamatam, Kayah, Malakata Shamayim Kwarab. Repent ye for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Call Halayim La La Abanawa Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Ruchakudash. Wamashina Laza Kwanim Na Wamalakim, Sharuchagador, which is all praises to our Father Yahweh, which means he exists. Bahasham, in the name Yahweh Shai delivers in double honors to the elders and apostles of great millstones. Like Yeshaya, this is Isaiah chapter 2. And we'll read verses 1 to 3. Or Salak, we'll go down to verse 4. But it says, the word that Yeshaya, Isaiah, the son of Amos, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. All right, and ultimately, this is, who this word is essentially addressed to. I'm going to get this real fast because the whole scriptures, all right, it's the nation of Yasharallah. This is Amos chapter 3, and we'll give verse 1 and 2. And it says, hear this word that the Lord hath spoken against you, O children of Yasharallah. It says, against the whole family which I have brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities. Now going back to Isaiah chapter 2 and verse 1, it says the word that Isaiah the son of Amos saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. Because this doesn't consist of the heathenistic nations. All right, this is only to the word is first and foremost for the elect. All right, in which in the kingdom all of us will be made perfect. All right, with the elect ultimately reaping the benefits of the kingdom first go around, with 2/3, they'll be born back in the kingdom, with the law, statutes, and commandments, all right, and their what parts, you see. But all right, this word is not for, all right, it's not, the Lord isn't dealing with, with the other nations, all right, and just to prove that point, let's get this real fast. This is Tahoyam Psalms chapter 147, and we'll get, let's start at verse 16, all right, and it says, he giveth snow like wool, he scattereth the hoarfrost like ashes. He casteth forth his ice like morsels. Who can stand before his cold? It says, he sendeth out his word and melteth them. He causeth his wind to blow, and the waters flow. He sheweth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Yasharallah. He hath not dealt so with any nation, and as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. So ultimately the Lord is not dealing with the other nations, all right? The Lord is dealing with, the Israelites, all right? Those consist of the Lord's people, you see, and everyone of the nation of Yasharallah, all right, is not the elect of the nation of Yasharallah. Only the elect is going to be delivered from the said perils, all right, that are coming upon this planet Earth, you see. But, going back to Isaiah chapter 2 and verse 1, it says, the word that Isaiah the son of Amos saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. Because ultimately, currently, all right, Esau Edom is spearheading the world. Everybody's essentially following after his his blueprint and his hegemony and rulership. All right, but in a spiritual sense, all right, the lingua franca of the world, which the lingua franca is the language, all right, the universal language. And what I mean by universal language, pretty much the law of the land, or everything that everyone that is going to have going to flow unto the ways essentially of us. All right, essentially everyone's going to follow the ways of the Lord. All right, so reading it back, Isaiah, Yeshaya chapter 2 and verse 2, it says, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains. So ultimately going into the house of David. All right, because the Lord is essentially closing up the breaches. All right, and in the kingdom, ultimately, all right, again, it's going to go back to, all right, a true righteous rulership, all right, being the Most High Yahweh, all right, Why Yahweh Shai, Malak Dawada, King David, on down to the 144,000. But that's going to be the mountain. That's going to be the government that's going to be established. This is the government, the mountain that's mentioned in Isaiah 2 and 2. It says, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it, because ultimately the way that's going to be in, the way of righteousness is going to be in. So let's get a couple precepts. Zayashaya, this is Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 6. It says, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. All right, going back to Isaiah 2 and 2, it's talking about that mountain was talking about the government, the righteous government. All right, it says, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty Power, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Verse 7, it says, and it's talking about Hamashayach Yahawashai. It says, of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even forever. All right, so going back to Isaiah 2 and 2, it says, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. All right, and that's ultimately going to be forever. All right, that's why it says, and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even forever. It says, the zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. And what the scriptures say, Isaiah, the 55th chapter. All right, being that the Lord, roughly paraphrasing, being that the Lord prophesied, essentially it's gonna come to pass. The Lord's word doesn't go out void. It's gonna prosper. It's gonna do the thing that it pleases. Roughly paraphrasing. So let's get a couple more precepts. Because it's gonna be a righteous rulership. All right, in the kingdom to come. All right, let's get this. This is Isaiah Yashaya chapter 16. And let's get verse 5, and it says, and in mercy shall the throne be established, and he shall sit upon it in truth in the tabernacle of David. It says, judging and seeking judgment and hasting righteousness. You see, because ultimately, all right, I'm going to read this back. It says, and in mercy shall the throne be established. If you look at the current rulership, it's not about mercy. All right, it's about when they say, okay, well, you got a defendant, and you got the plaintiff, all right? And, just for example, Esau's plaintiff say it's the state or like federal or something like that. And the defendant, all right, generally, in this society will be Jake. You see, well, being that Esau's system is modeled off of giving sentencing, all right, unrighteous sentencing, all right, because when you break that word down, how they use that word, sentence goes back to SEN, and that SEN goes back to the census, so when the judge is like, when they say, okay, when it goes down and it's like it's time for the judge to ultimately give a sentence, well, that sentence is coming from how he feels. All right, that's why they use the term sense or the SEN. That part goes back to the census, and that's handled like that in that level. But you see, they also put it upon like on a lower level. All right, with lawyers, and police officers, deputy sheriffs, and stuff like that. That's why they say, okay, this is up to your discretion. Did you feel this way? Did you feel, threatened in this? That's why, the system is pretty much mocked off of how a judge, so to speak, feels. You see, so on the contrary, all right, in the kingdom, it's not going to be like that. All right, in verse 5, it says, Isaiah 16 and 5, it says, and in mercy shall the throne be established. It says, and he shall sit upon it in truth. It says, in the tabernacle of David, judging and seeking judgment and hasting righteousness. You see, so it's going to be complete equity. It's going to be complete balance. It's going to be complete righteousness. It's not going to be how it is, with Esau's hegemony. All right, so let's get a couple more. All right, let's get, we'll get Isaiah Yashaya chapter 1, and we'll get verse 26, because we're talking about their righteous rulership. This is Isaiah chapter 1 and verse 26, and it says, and I will restore thy judges as at the first, and thy counselors as at the beginning. Afterward thou shalt be called the city of righteousness, the faithful city. All right, so ultimately, again, the Lord is essentially in the process of raising up the judges. All right, essentially in the process of closing up the breaches of the house of David. All right, so in the kingdom, all right, it's going to be everything is going to be ran in righteousness. It's going to be again ran in true balance and true equity. All right, and it's going to be upright. All right, versus or on the contrary, on this side things are not ran that way. But in the kingdom, we're not going to have to. It's not going to be. It's essentially going to be ran in righteousness. You know, it's pretty much the point. All right. So nevertheless, let's go back to Isaiah chapter 2, and we'll get verse 3. And it says, "And many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Yaquab, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem." You know, Jerusalem's going to be it's going to be like an epicenter. It's going to be it's going to be the epicenter. It's going to be like the capital, you know. So going back to verse 4, all right, and it says, or I'm going to get a quick precept for this. I'm going to read it back. This is Isaiah chapter 2 and verse 3. It says, "And many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, and to the house of the God of Yaquab, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem." Let's get this real fast. This is Psalms chapter 18, and we'll get verse 43. And it says, "Thou hast delivered me from the strivings of the people." It says, "And thou hast made me the head of the heathen. A people whom I have not known shall serve me. As soon as they hear of me, they shall obey me. The strangers shall submit themselves unto me." All right, so going back, because that's true subordination. All right, Isaiah 2 and verse 3 says, "And many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Yaquab, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths." All right, because in Esau's kingdom, all right, we had to essentially subscribe to, the different laws. You can't spit on the sidewalk, or, you'll get arrested, or you get some type of citation or a ticket or something like that. Or you can't, just different little things that you can't do in this man's society, that are unrighteous decrees as pursuant to Isaiah the 10th chapter in the first verse. You see, because we're under subordination, we're in the land of our oppressors. You see, so by default we got to subscribe to the laws. You see, so in the kingdom it's going to be on the contrary, to where we're going to be at the top. All right, and ultimately they're going to have to be subordinate. If they're going to have to be in subordination, they're going to have to be subject unto us in our laws, as pursuant to this verse right here. Reading it again, Isaiah 2 and 3, it says, "And many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Yaquab, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem." All right, verse 4, and it says, "And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore." Because it's not going to be a need to go to war, all right, in the kingdom. All right. Isaiah Yeshaya chapter 14 and verse 5 says, "The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers." The Lord has essentially, he's in the process of breaking, that power that Esau Edom has. All right, which, a part of that power is the deception. This man is being exposed, so he still has a little sliver of power, but the Lord is breaking that. All right. It says, "The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers." Whatever point in time, the Lord has it to where this man is going to be completely taken out of power. All right, that's essentially what's going to happen, with this specific prophecy. It says, "The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke." Going back to, Isaiah, a literal stroke, you see, but then also a stroke of a pen. It says, "He who smote the people in the wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger, is persecuted, and none hindereth." Verse 7 says, "The whole earth is at rest, and is quiet. They break forth into singing." It says, "Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon saying, Since thou art laid down, no feller is come up against us." And a feller is somebody that cuts down trees. All right, and trees in the scriptures is likened unto the men, all right, likened unto the nations. You see, so ultimately in the kingdom, all right, the whole earth is going to be at rest, all right, quiet, all right, and the trees, you see, because Esau has destroyed us, but he's also destroyed, the other nations. All right, but predominantly Jake, you see, but then he also, again, he has, destroyed the other nations. They have subscribed unto, that Babylon juice, those philosophies. You see, so that's one aspect as to how he has been destroying. You see, so ultimately in the kingdom, he gonna be put down. All right, or he's gonna be in the kingdom. He gonna have to do his slavery. You see, but then he's gonna essentially be eradicated. It's not gonna be any more of Esau. You see, but it's pretty much the point that in the kingdom is gonna be peace. All right, right now it's chaos. People are in a constant state of anxiety. All right, people are essentially always on edge. You see, but in the kingdom it's gonna be true rest. All right, in which essentially the nation of Yasha Allah is going to have abundance, and we're essentially going to be living that peace. So just wanted to go into that. We went into Isaiah chapter 2 verses 1 to 4, and Adam Tazah. On the next one we pick it up at verse 5. So Adam Tazah Zabanaya Palos, or there was a beautiful edification through the spirit. While Adam Tazah Atam Yashlaila Tawablo as well. You have a good night. Wash Shalom Makam, which is peace and Tiwa. Shalom.